It's time to turn it over to you. If you'd like to step to the mic, we need you to state your name, keep your question concise, and indicate if you'd like to ask one individual or pose it to all three. Is there anyone who'd like to start? You, sir. Jump on up there.
My name is George Kunkel, and I'm a retired school teacher for 35 years. And I don't know who up there would have this information, but how much or what percentage of the Central Dauphin budget goes towards charter schools, cyber schools, all these other state programs that are, from what I've read, not doing very well? So whoever has the statistic.
We might have to let Eric speak after.
That would be Eric.
Do you know?
Nice.
We tried.
You're starting
-20. You're starting at -20.
I just got here, 20 seconds, really?
Go ahead.
Get a pillow, get a pillow.
Real quick.
Yeah, we have charter and cyber obligations. Right now, we have the mandate for the charter schools, 240 students. Reimbursement rate is $10,000 per student if they don't have an IEP. So in other words, it's 240 grand just for the one charter school. If they have an IEP, the reimbursement is $22,000 a year. We do not get to look at their IEP. We do not basically have to hold them accountable. So it's a very discouraging environment. You know, I believe that every educational opportunity should be on the table, but it's difficult when you're paying a bill, you're not seeing the results, you can't hold anybody accountable. And again, I think there's some charter schools that are good. For the most part, if you look at the scores, they are underperforming. And there have been problems. We still have obligations to cyber, but I can break out the numbers for you. Chris is also here, so we can put Chris on the spot if we want to. But the charter school just moved to VOTEC and plans to increase enrollment. So just so you know, for every new student, and we're trying to deal with that right now, for every new student, the reimbursement is anywhere from 10 to 22 grand a year.
So, all right, thank you, Eric. We appreciate it. Eric's in the back for your other questions.
Yeah, thanks, because I didn't want to go out on the
All right, the line is forming behind you there. Up. You got to race to the microphone. All right, jump up.
My name is Alan McCormick. I'm a resident of the district, obviously. I live in Region 3. Can I ask each of them a question?
You sure can.
Okay. Pamela, I've heard you say, in answer to almost every question, you talked about the children. And I agree, certainly children, that's why schools exist. We teach our kids. But I view this as really being a stakeholder of both teachers as one group, children as another group, and taxpayers, unfortunately often the forgotten group. Every one of your answers was focused on the children. Are you going to protect the taxpayers too?
Mike, there you go.
Of course I am.
Okay.
I love children. That's why I went into teaching. I don't want them to be forgotten in this. See, I've been in a classroom where a kid has come in and his father was just taken away into jail and had to deal with that baby. He's second grade. I've been in the classroom where children come to school hungry and I have to send them to the cafeteria to eat. So yeah, it does sound like all I care about are the children, but somebody has to care about the children. I'm sure every one of you in here care about the children, but I understand that taxpayers foot the bill. And I too am a resident here. I don't want to pay taxes either.
As a member of the school board, though, you just okay. That was my question.
Okay, you want to run for
Mr. Warren. What I hear in my neighborhood about you is like you're the new guy, but you've been around and you've been involved. Could you expound on what it is that you've been doing in our community? Because I'm not sure I got that. Thank
Sure, you. Absolutely. So, I have been very active. So, everything from PTA engagement with my children in school, scouts, as well, and these are just volunteer things, right? So you stay engaged with that. And then from a community leadership perspective, as I mentioned earlier, I served on the Gaming Advisory Board for Dauphin County. Just so you know what that is dollars that come from the casino that are, and they make recommendations. I'm not currently on that board. They make recommendations to the county commissioners on where to allocate that for items of public need and for major infrastructure and emergency services. I've also served as the Dauphin County Republican Committee Chairman. and I served that, and very proud of my service there. And I've also served as the former president and lieutenant governor for the Harrisburg Kiwanis Club. So
Awesome, thank you. Would you like to jump up real quick?
Yeah, Paul Endres. My question is, the ultimate outcome of the system is to educate our children. So how do we measure accurately whether we're educating them, and how do we correlate expenditures and increases in expenditures to increased results, however you choose to measure them?
Who would like to jump in on that? Go ahead, use your mic there, Richard. Mike, go ahead, Richard. Use your microphone if you would.
That's an interesting question, but not an easy question to answer. The only barometer that we currently have to measure the progress of our schools and compare them to the other schools in the state are the PSSA tests and the Keystone tests. The Central Dauphin School District has not done very well the last 2 years on those particular tests. As a matter of fact, actually we have 19 schools, and of the 19 schools, 15 of them received a grade of D or below. So we're not doing real well on that measurement, so to say. But your question wasn't just how are we doing in our rating. Your question was how we correlate how we're doing with the money that we spent. Well, that's also a very important point. And what we have to do is measure the programs that we employ in the school district, our instructional techniques, along with our special education rules, and we have to economically deliver those. And one of the things that I think is important in my case is because I have experience in all these fields, that I can speak with the superintendent, the other school board members, the district administrators. When we talk about those things, I actually know about them and what our requirement is. Coordinating the amount of money we spend with the results that we get is a very difficult job. But as I said earlier, I promise that if you elect me on November the 7th, I promise to work very hard to make our education the best it can be for the least amount of money that we have to spend on that.
All right, thank you, Richard. Let's try to get a couple more questions in if you don't mind. Jump on up there.
My name is Ken Bowman. I live in Forest Hills. I had 45 years in education. First year as a first-year teacher at Central Dauphin East when it opened. And I want to bring to your attention, there is a requirement called a strategic plan. Every school district in the Commonwealth is required to do it. And what happens, there seems to be a strong commitment. In the beginning, teachers are involved, community involved, educators are involved. However, what happens after that in most school districts is it's basically forgotten. There's a midpoint progress report, but that is a live document, and it has to be something that you as school board members make sure it happens, that a lot of decisions are not made by late night meetings or the strength of one person on the board. Okay, that is my request to you. How do you see yourselves doing that to make sure that happens?
Justin, you want to jump in?
I think that's a good point. I think one is just adhere to it. You know, if you think about in townships in the county, there are, and in business, right, you have strategic plans, right? And you try to adhere to them. But these are, while they're documents, they also have, sometimes they have to evolve a little bit as well as things change. But I think it comes back to something I said earlier. It's pay attention to that, but it's also open communication, right? So if you're communicating with the public at large, you're communicating with the educators and the administrators, you'll get a solution and you'll make sure you do the right thing.
Can I
Richard, you
have
wanna
30
jump in real
seconds?
quick? Yeah, real quick.
Okay, real quickly. I actually believe that the current plan that the district has, I believe that I sat on the committees that helped write that plan, help write the strategic plan. But what you said is exactly right. It's peaks and valleys. When it's first written, it's a peak, and after a while, it's a valley. So you're right. Somebody has to be responsible for keeping us on track. And I think that the board's responsibility is to keep the superintendent, and the superintendent's responsibility to keep the administrators on track. And that's the way it's supposed to work. And everybody should be, in that line, should be held accountable for what they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Jump in.
Good evening. My name's Ted Giovannis. I live at 2318 Forest Lane. I It's been a pleasure to have worked for Central Dauphin School District as an educator for over 40 years. In fact, some of my former students are in this audience, but I go. I had a few questions, but just a broad statement. I've lived in this school district for 16 years. In the 16 years, real estate taxes, the school tax has gone up for me, for all of us, 15 out of the last 16 years. And usually it's like 2.2, 2.3. But I was a bit concerned. This time it almost tripled. It went up 5.9. Now I realize you have to tax, but I was hoping maybe I could ask questions of Mr. Mock about 8 months ago. They started the process of developing this budget. My question to him would have been, what did you do in the last 8 months to try to create a budget which is sound for the children, at the same time can alleviate some of the tax hikes for the citizens of the school district? And another question I would have been, since he is in his statement, I heard his statement, seemed very sincere. He's concerned about taxpayers and cost of things. However, my question would have been, then why did you vote yes for a 5.9 increase? Thank you.
Fair enough, we appreciate that. Go ahead.
I've been a resident, my name is Cynthia Sell, and I've been a resident for 31 years. Both my children went through Central Dauphin, and I now have 2 granddaughters in school. So I'm very invested. I was also a special ed coordinator, director in another school district. I've not worked in Central Dauphin, but my experience has been in a nearby school district. One of the things I'm concerned about is the hostility that has developed over the years between teachers and parents and the community. And I think a lot of that is related to the whole pension issues. People don't understand why that's an issue, and I think sometimes teachers get blamed for that. My question to you is, what can you do to make, I guess, better communication with the community so that this kind of hostility dissipates? Because that is not helping our children, and I know sometimes children hear parents at home being angry about, you know, what the school district is doing, or maybe taxes, or
So how do you ease that between the private citizen and the teacher so we don't have animosity there?
well, and how can you help alleviate that?
Pamela, did you want a chance to know?
One of the things that part of my platform is that I would like to partner with parents. I think one of the things that Central Dauphin does an excellent job at many things, but one of the things that I saw as being a teacher in this district was that we communicate with parents and the public well, but we don't. And so one of the things that I thought would be a really good thing to do is really try to be intentional about how we communicate with parents and how we communicate with the public, so that we have full disclosure, so that parents understand why we're doing what we're doing and how we came about that decision, and invite parents in and not make it a closed circle, so to speak. So that's one way that I would like to talk to, dialogue with the rest of the board members about.
Okay,
helping.
Richard wants to jump in real quick. 20 seconds.
Go ahead.
I just want 30 seconds.
Go ahead. Yep.
For a long time, I always told my staff and those that worked in the district, we're most successful with the people we communicate with. That's a fact. Our district currently does not communicate as it had in the past. I believe our main source of communication now is the district website. First of all, it's difficult to navigate, and second of all, everybody doesn't go to the district website. We don't have newsletters anymore. We don't have mailings anymore. We don't do those things, but we got to get back to doing it. We have to have input from the people, from the taxpayers, from the parents. We need that input. And I'll just give you one example. I'll bet you that no one in this room knew that the percentage of our tax increase this year was 5.9 until you got your bill. I bet you no one in here knew that until you got your bill.
Everybody know we have 5.9? Yeah, looks like you're right.
That was 4 hands, by the way. So anyway, we certainly need to communicate better with the public. We do.
All right, thank you. Do we want to take one more, Bob, or?
Can we go quick? I mean, we gotta get.
Because we want to get to the
It won't
supervisors.
be a problem. My name's Charlie Harvey. I have gone through this school district. Hello, Mr. Bowman.
Wait,
Mr.
what kind of
Bowman.
student was he?
What no?
You're just saying that. You're just saying.
When that school opened, I was a seventh grader, and I had this man in class,
That's
and he
cool.
was an awesome
Give
teacher.
him a hand. That's really cool. I like that. Is he the first kid you sent to detention?
That didn't
I'm sorry.
happen.
Go ahead.
Anyway, I went. My graduating class at Central Dauphin High School was the very first one to go from K to 12. From there, I went to Juniata College, and after that, I taught in this school district in special education for 31 and a half years. I'm now retired. I'm now proud to say that I am Mr. Mazzatesta's chairman for his campaign. And I have one question only for him to answer, because he answered it for me, because I was a little bit ignorant of how this all came about, because that wasn't my thing. I was teaching special ed.
All right.
What's the process from the end of one fiscal year to the beginning of the next one? How do these taxes get to be 5.9%? And he knows the answer.
Use your mic.
I'm trying to make this answer short because it's actually a very lengthy answer. The district begins building the budget in the fall. My guess is they've either already started or will start shortly. The business manager makes probably 10 or 12 presentations to the board. During that time, board members have the opportunity to question the budget, to question the spending, to question the projections. And after those presentations in the beginning of May or sometime early in May, they vote to put it on display. They put it on display at the office, at the district office, where people can actually go in and look at it. And somewhere around June 1st or the last day of whichever month it is, it has to be on display for 30 days. Then it comes back before the board again, and they get to either approve it, amend it, change it, do whatever they want to do, and then vote to accept it or not accept it. That's the process. If you sit on the board, you have all those opportunities to try to reduce spending, curtail growth, or whatever it is that's necessary to do for the budget. I don't know what goes on currently, but I can promise you this. If you elect me on November the 7th, I'm going to have questions on every one of those days and every one of those presentations, and I refuse to spend a dollar that's not meant for the education of our children and the protection of our taxpayers. That's my promise to you.
All right, thank you. Good. We're going to take those two. Last two. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Amy Damden. I have 2 children in the district. My question for you is, how much emphasis do you think should be placed on the PSSAs?
Do you want to point that to anyone in particular, Pamela?
Okay, thank you.
Not much. That's the short answer. The tests are written so that our kids don't understand them. Case in point, our teachers teach, maybe say, antonyms. And we know that our kids know what antonyms are. But when they see it on the test, it's asked in such a way that the kids have no idea what they're talking about. And so they get the answer wrong. And so it comes back saying, oh, this child is deficient in language arts. This child is deficient in fractions. And we know that they know it. We know that they know it. They've proven that they know it. But on the test, they don't get it because of the way the questions are couched. So then what happens is we spend a lot of our time trying to figure out, now how are they going to couch this question? How can I fix this so that they will get this on the test? We waste so much time with those PSSAs, it's not even funny.
So you would call that teaching to the test, right? Kind
I didn't say that.
I put words in your mouth. Can we get to our last question real quick, because we need to move this.
Can I have 30 seconds on that,
Yeah,
if Justin doesn't mind? I'm going to say that there is more to the PSSA test and the Keystone test than that. It was never meant to be a report card by the Department of Ed, but it is turned into a report card. So what happens with the PSSA scores is that communities use those scores to compare their schools with other schools. For example, I told you earlier that 15 of 19 of our schools got a D or less. Now, we could make many excuses, but my question would always be, how comes they figured it out at Cumberland Valley? How comes they figured it out at Lower Dolphin? How comes they figured it out at Susquehanna? But we didn't figure it out here at Central Dolphin. So we have to figure out what it is. And let me tell you this. When I was the principal of Central Dolphin High School, we had a B. Every year, a B. What did we do differently then as compared to now? So I think the PSSA and the Keystones are important.
All right, and our last question.
I didn't say that they weren't.
No, and I wasn't implying that you did.
Folks, I'll be very quick.
That's on now.
Here to listen
All right.
to them.
I'll be very quick here. As it relates to that, you have to have some sort of a measurement tool, and that's just the bottom line. And in everything you do in life, there's some sort of a performance index. You have to have something to measure by. So, for example, we talked about what if they eliminate property taxes. So if we eliminated property taxes, the state then takes control of all the dollars. Let's just assume the state gets control of all the dollars they disseminate. How do you think they're going to go ahead and decide how they're going to disseminate those dollars? Are they going to disseminate it based on schools that do poorly on some sort of a standardized test? Are they going to disseminate it based on, are they going to reward schools who do well? How are they going to do that? I assure you, there will always be some sort of measurement. So the key is, we have to make sure that our educators have the tools necessary to teach our kids and get them prepared for it so they can do well. And that's it.
All right, thank you. All right, last question, Budget. Thank
My
you.
name's Cheryl Gus. I grew up in this area. I have
closer to the mic.
daughters that graduated from this district. I myself just retired and couldn't wait to retire. I hope that as board members that you will put back in that piece that's missing, and that's collaboration. Rather than just increasing curriculum and strategies and programs, collaborate. Find out. As a teacher, you get to know your students. As a board member, you get to know your teachers. And as a superintendent as well. I can say from a teaching not too far removed, just in June left, the morale is not good. Fingers are pointed to educators. Heads go down at meetings. Not to say that we need to fluff everybody up, but I did hear one board member at the last meeting, and I was so grateful to hear that. Whether the numbers showed what we should look like in the blue, and it was red and blue, he said there's growth. We don't get that at meetings. We get brow beatings. Parents that, it's typical, some parents don't have the time or the energy or the care, whatever. Most do. And most teachers do, but there needs to be a collaboration. As board members, will you hold not only teachers, but board members, your peers, and the top? The tone comes from the top and works down. I hope we can count on you.
Thank you. We'll leave that as a rhetorical question, so we appreciate you making your point. We're going to go ahead and move on to the supervisor part. Can we have a round of applause for our candidates here tonight?
I just have one quick question.
Okay, real quick.
Okay, so my name's Jared Heisey. I graduated from Central Dolphin 2 years ago. But I have a couple statistics here. The Bureau of Labor Statistics states that 69.7% of students go to college out of high school. And then Penn State estimates that 75% change their major in the first year. And then the Washington Post also states that only 27% of college graduates have a job that's even closely related to their major. So would you guys continue to push kids towards college knowing that low rate? Or would you give them multiple options like the military or going straight into the workforce?
This is something I'm actually very passionate about. I'm going to give you an example. One of my customers, large company, I don't want to say it publicly, but very large customer that hires people across the country to do high-skilled labor work. And they have young men and women out there doing their work at the age of 26, earning in excess of $70,000 a year. We have college students that are coming out with debt, and they're struggling to find a job at $40,000. There's something wrong. And the bottom line is, if we do not get more of our young people engaged in this, and please understand, when I say trades, I'm not talking just moving a wrench. These folks, when these people get out there, they've got to understand how to use technology. They've got to be smart. They've got to know how to do math. They've got to understand certain things. They've got to be able to communicate effectively. And the bottom line is, these are smart kids going out there. But the bottom line is, those jobs exist. And if we do not continue to train our young people to do that, I assure you, they're going to find a way to get that labor, and it won't come from the United States.
All right,
and we need to be smart.
Thank you for that point. I appreciate it.
Weigh in on that.
Come on, we need to move it along. Pamela, everybody's going to be around. You can actually hang out. Thank our candidates for your time. I appreciate it.